Hello, my dear wolf pack. Serenity Darkheart here with an April 17th edition of This Day in History. Sorry I didn't get to do the episode yesterday or the day before. I had family emergencies, but that's all taken care of now. So I get to come back to you guys. With all that said, this day in 1970, Apollo 13 returned to Earth. Now, this was kind of risky because apparently 2 days into the mission, their number 2 oxygen tank blew up on the spacecraft. So you can imagine the hecticness and worry about everything, because apparently their normal supply of oxygen, electricity, lights, water, everything was disrupted because this tank exploded. So they ended up deciding to cancel the landing on the moon mission. They aborted that and ended up instead circling the moon and then coming back to Earth. But during that time, apparently it was really, really cold and really risky as well, because they had to conserve the oxygen in order to try to make it back to Earth, and also conserve fuel cells or something, just so it made for a safe re-entry into the atmosphere. And I believe this is where the famous quote, "Houston, we've had a problem," come from. But even after all this, on April 17th, 1970, they returned safely to Earth. So you can imagine the sigh of relief on everybody's faces, not only the people that were on Earth trying to control everything, but also the astronauts that were actually on Apollo 13. You know, that had to be nerve-wracking. Also on this day in history, I found a very interesting story. It's a crime story that happened back in 1936, where apparently there, after a week of trying to track down every bit of conceivable evidence they had, only 2 pieces of evidence were found in this case. What had happened was, it was sadly a woman that was a novelist, and she was also the wife of the NBC executive producer at the time. His name was Louis Titterton. His wife was named Nancy Titterton. Sadly, she was raped and strangled in her home on April 10th. But the interesting part was, the only 2 pieces of evidence that they could end up finding was a foot-long piece of cord that was used to tie her hands up, and a single horsehair that was found on her bedspread. Now, they were, according to this article I found, both of this was enough to convict the killer, or enough to find the killer at least. The detective in charge ordered the team to trace back the source of the cord, which they did. They traced it all the way back to an upholstery shop in New York City that was owned by a man named Theodore Kruger. What happened? The horsehair had already been tracked. They'd already led police to this name. I'm going to butcher it. I know I'm going to butcher it. John Fiorenza, I think. His name is spelled Fiorenza. So I don't know if it's Fiorenza or not. And I apologize if I screw up the name. But he was an assistant in Theodore Kruger's upholstery shop. And oddly enough, they were the first ones to discover Miss Titterton's body, because they were there to work on one of her couch. They were going to repair her couch, which incidentally was filled with horsehair, the same one that matched the single horsehair that they found in her bedroom. But they both denied being in the bedroom that day, so they had to end up finding some way to trace the evidence to Forenza. They also found out that the night before the murder, Forenza had been at the house. And he was also late to work the day of the murder. So, and also looking into his record, he had been arrested 4 previous times for theft and had also been diagnosed with delusion by a prison psychiatrist. So their grand scheme to get him to confess was they were trying to gain his trust by saying, hey, we need your help to solve this case. And then once they got enough trust, they ended up showing him the evidence of the cord that was used to tie her hands together. He was so caught off guard by all this that he ended up confessing, but he pleaded temporary insanity. And of course, that didn't hold up in court, so he ended up being sentenced, and he was executed January 22nd of 1937. So I thought that was just a pretty interesting bit of crime trivia, because it's like, wow, a single horsehair and a piece of cord was able to direct the investigators at the time to a murder. And this was back in 1936, so this is before they had all the high-tech forensics stuff that they have now. And I think that's just pretty interesting that they were able to solve a case in 1936 with just that little bit of evidence. That's the kind of stuff I get interested in. A lot of history, crime history, basically any kind of history from like the U.S. U.S. history was my favorite subject in high school. Also, I apologize for all the ums and ahs and stuff like that. I'm still trying to get used to being on the camera, and it's a little nerve-wracking for me, but you might see me being a little bit better, and I promise I'm trying to work on that. So hopefully after this series gets started a little more and I do this more often, I'll get used to being on the camera. But for right now, I apologize for the ums, the ahs, the stutters, and the pauses as I try to collect my thoughts and everything. But also, to get back to this, also in 1970, this day in history in 1790, the man who discovered the effects of electricity, Benjamin Franklin, passed away. In Hollywood news, for all you General Hospital fans, 2002 was the year that they aired their 10,000th episode. And for you music fans, on this day in 1960, Eddie Cochran, the man behind Summertime Blues and Come On Everybody, sadly passed away in a taxi because it crashed when he was on his way to the airport. He was supposed to be catching a flight back home to the United States when sadly his taxi ended up crashing, and he passed away and another person was injured. And that does it for this day in history. Like I said, hopefully this is going to be a regular to semi-regular series. Hopefully I get it up every day, and if I miss a day, I apologize. I'm not intentionally missing it, it's just something came up. But like I said, I'm going to try to do it every day if possible, every day to every other day if possible. But I hope you guys enjoyed this, and if you want to see more content like this, please subscribe down below. Also, click the bell icon so you can stay up to date with a lot of my other videos, new videos. Like I said, trying to come out every day. Especially keep up to date with when I end up doing my movie and TV reviews. So hopefully those can start up soon. Also, I want to make a shout out to my newest subscriber, Josh1275. Thank you so much for the subscription. I hope I could keep you entertained and everything. And as I told you, I'm probably, when I get enough money, probably going to start going to different places and attractions and trying to video them. one of my favorite attractions that I wanted to do, sadly, I can't end up filming in, is a museum up in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. Sadly, I've already asked. I wanted to do it back in March it was St. Patrick's Day, and they were celebrating the Irish or something at the museum, and sadly, one, I didn't get to go to Pigeon Forge around that time like I thought I would, and two, they don't allow filming in there except for, I think, special occasions. But other times, I'm going to be trying to do more attractions and stuff when I get more money and be able to go to the different places, and maybe even small little attractions and stuff around the area where I live, and show it off. So that's some of the stuff that's going to be coming up. Like I said, check back every day for this day in history. Click the bell icon so you can stay up to date. And until next time, I've seen you, Wolfpack.